I say hello to Lerrel Pinto. I hope I pronounced this right. And I'm very happy that you said yes to our little interview here. And maybe for those people who don't know, you can give a little intro.
Hey, I'm Lerrel Pinto. I'm really excited to be over here today. So I'm right now a professor at NYU. I'm a startup founder. A lot of my work has been in robotics and AI. I've been in this space for the last 10 odd years. Last 5 years, I've been a professor at NYU, as I've already said before. Happy to dive into any of the topics on robotics, AI, um, trying to get here, what is next, what are things that everyone is getting wrong, and we are getting right maybe as well. Yeah, so.
Um, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of things that people are getting wrong, and there's a lot of things that people are getting right at the moment quite well.
Hmm.
I think a lot of things came together and to push robotics into the hype cycle it is at the moment. But we can
Hmm.
clarify more what is hype and what is reality. I really like to hear your opinion a bit about this. But yeah, let's take some steps backward and tell me how were the early years before you became a professor? How was that for you, and how did you even get to this point? This is always and go as far back as you like. I'd like to go as far back as you allowed to. So,
Hmm. Yeah. So actually, many folks do not know this about me, but I grew up in the Middle East, in Doha, and I was always interested in science. So, math, physics, chemistry, all sorts of stuff related to science. When I decided on what to do for my undergrad, I decided to go into more of, I would say, engineering. So I did a mechanical engineering major. I did a minor in electrical and electronics. And so I spent a lot of my undergrad time just tinkering around with robots, building robots, creating new mechanisms, really from the hardware standpoint.
mm.
And at some point, I think at the end of my undergrad, I was like, okay, we are able to build sort of the bones and flesh of these robots, but they're really pretty dumb, right? They still cannot really do the types of things that biological agents, humans can do. And so really the insight over here was that the key limitation for robotics and robot intelligence is actually not the hardware. It's actually the software. It's the brain and the control of these robots that is what is really missing. And so from that part, I was like, okay, let's try to learn as much as I can about AI and learning. And I had the great opportunity of coming to CMU. I met Abhinav Gupta, who was a wonderful advisor and ended up being my PhD advisor and mentor throughout life. And so, I met him and, he was like, yeah, you're right. The AI and the brain is like what is the big important piece of robots. And so, I got started with that. We built the first
Oh,
robotic system
wait.
that
I think you're going a little bit
too
too
fast.
fast.
Okay.
No,
All right.
it's just because I think for you, very often you find it's the same problem when you're on a product and you're building and you're working on a project. Very
Mhm.
often things are so normal and usual for you because you spend every single day with those things, right? So
Mhm.
you were mentioned this just briefly, but actually this is something I'm very interested in. You said that you grew up in the Middle East, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't mind,
Mhm.
maybe we can spend a few moments here because, as you said, this is not too usual.
Mhm.
And before entering university, I mean, you said that you always had been interested in. Was that defined by something, or was that something that you have been seen with relatives or friends? And
Mhm.
yeah, maybe we can spend a few moments here.
Yeah. So I think I don't know if it is science by itself that I thought was interesting as I was growing up. I think the part of being able to think deeply about a problem, right? And think deeply about a problem and find solutions for that problem. I think that is what fundamentally I found exciting, I found interesting. Um, and maybe not even finding the solution, but the process of finding the solution is really gratifying. So so yeah, I would and I went to a sort of Indian school in the Middle East, and just based on the curriculum that our school had, it was very science focused. It was very math, physics focused. And so just naturally the sorts of exciting problems that I would get exposed to would be the exciting problems in science. Yeah, but this is I think a bit funny, because once I got into undergrad and college, I got exposed to other sorts of problems. So problems in linguistics, in neuroscience, um, in philosophy, right? And so I think the sort of starting from the question of, okay, here is a problem, we do not fully understand this problem, and going from there to getting a little more understanding of that problem, a little more insight, a little more, hey, this is how it actually works, right? I think that is what sort of actually um, drives the sort of enjoyment while working on those problems.
And you said that you've been interested in a bit in robotics very early on as well. And you were mentioning here hardware before going into software. Uh,
Hmm.
is it because when I look at my brother, for example, he was assembling the toaster, for example, very early on.
Hmm.
So like really
Hmm.
like building and working with the hands. Is there something that you also can remember doing, or was it something that were always a little bit more abstract, as you said, thinking about problems and yeah.
Yeah, so I think my way of approaching it was, I did not think of robots as, how people think of robots today, right? Where, there are these machines that can think and so on. At least when I was growing up, it was a lot about, hey, like, let's make, what happens if you like take a screwdriver and like open up like I don't know, like a TV, for instance. What is going to be there inside? Okay, if I open it and if I mess things up, can I put it back together, right? Or what happens if I like take like aluminum foil and like heat it up, and then cover it up with like some plastic. Like, will that stick to it? Will it not stick to it? How will it wrap around? If I put this around my arms, will my arms feel colder? Will it feel warmer? Right? Just like tinkering around
Mm.
with all sorts of things that I see around me. I think that's what I was doing mostly as I was growing up. Um, yeah, so I think I feel like that is itself not robotics. It's not a core part of robotics. But I think the question of, hey, there are these things. How does it work? What happens if you put A with B? What happens if you mix these two things together? What will it give you? I think that type of curiosity, I think, um, was very much present in my sort of formative years, I would say.
Mm. Getting into hardware, and then later on discovering, maybe hardware is just part of it, but maybe what's more important, and especially in robotics these days, we have a little bit of a renaissance of hardware because hardware is hard, and a lot of VCs
Hmm.
was neglecting the hardware part, and everyone was just going into software and SaaS business and building these kind of things.
Hmm.
Coming back to your studies, you were mentioning that you thought maybe there's more to it, and maybe I should have a look at the AI side, right? Maybe we can dive
Hmm.
into the to the university time, and you can walk me through, or you can tell me. You were mentioning already someone who was important for you, and maybe we can spend some more time here.
Yeah, so I guess like university is a very broad time. Right? There's the undergrad, and I did grad school and then PhD. But maybe I can sort of break it down. So in my undergrad time, I barely did any research in my undergrad. A lot of my undergrad um, robotics was in robotics competitions. For example, there's this robotics competition in Asia called Robocon. So I used to keep working on Robocon robots. It's a lot of design and making, like physically making a lot of the robots rather than, I mean, there's a bit of programming it, but most of the work or most of the fun work is actually building that robot itself. Yeah. Um, and then I think that's the switch, right? So I did a lot of this like mechanical design, like soldering things on microcontroller boards and burning batteries, burning robots, getting the smoke alarms blaring in the basement of our buildings and so on. So I think um, that's the point where I had a pretty reasonable grasp of how to build these robots. I didn't really have a good grasp of how to make them think. I think that's where the switch goes from a lot more like undergrad work to more like grad school. Okay, like what do I want to learn more about? Yeah.
And I mean, because I had a few guests that were involved in this kind of competition. Some were building planes, some were building drones, some were building mobile robots, some were working on cars, right,
Hmm.
and races. Um, the question is, the people love to spend time together on working on those things and
Hmm.
learning from each other. Was that something that was somehow hard for you to get into? Because I mean, there's a lot of people working, and sometimes, yeah, people are shy. And yeah, how is that
Hmm.
for you? Was that easy?
I think it was easy actually. I think it was something that came naturally in a way. And I also think that I actually really enjoy working with other people. So I think the sort of social aspect of coming together and building something is always fun. You get to learn a lot. When something breaks, it's not just you struggling with how to fix it. There are like people around you who are also working with you to try to fix it. And I think I've been sort of very lucky in that sense where so, for example, when I was a freshman in college, there were like seniors in college who would like help me while I was, either working on my own robotics projects or, with other non-robotics projects as well. And that kept happening throughout my life. And I was this, and I was a freshman, there was always like a senior. When I was in my master's program, there would be a senior PhD student who would like help me. So I think that having that sort of research community around you where there are folks who are more knowledgeable and folks who are more smarter than you is definitely helpful because that's how you learn, I think. You learn by people's insights, and so you don't have to make the same mistakes that everyone else makes. You can sort of just learn from them, and then you give it forward, right? So then when you're in that position, you try to train students and work with students and uh, work with friends who are trying to get into this area.
And now being a professor, is that a possibility of you, or is that now being in a position where you can do this also, like this giving back?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I feel like I always try to put myself in a situation where I can give back to people, but also have people that I can learn from, right? And I think both of this is important um, where I always want to learn from people. I think when you're just getting started in the field, uh, it's easy to find people to learn from because you don't know much. Like, I mean, when I started, I didn't know anything. I didn't know like what neurons were, what gradient descent was. Like, I went to grad school not knowing like very fundamental things, like how to use the terminal on your laptop, right? Like there's like very fundamental things that most CS people know that I just didn't know because I didn't have that type of background.
Mm.
Um, and so I think when you're junior, it's easy to find senior folks who you can learn from. But I think as you grow, if you have listeners who are more senior, I think that's been really helpful to me. Just always finding someone who you can learn from and who can mentor you, even as you are a mentor for other people, is actually really um, really valuable. Now, of course, as a faculty, as a professor, I have to, almost as part of my job responsibility, I have to mentor students, teach students. I've already graduated a few PhD students as well, and just seeing them blossom has been great. Yeah, it's a very exciting sort of dynamic over here.
I mean, there's a difference between helping others out there that are a little bit below in their journey, or that are how do you say this in English? So where you're in your journey a bit deeper into it, right?
Hmm.
So you being senior, helping younger ones, or being in the PhD, then helping master students, but this not necessarily brings you in a position where you said, maybe I become a professor myself. So how did that happen? To to then make the jump. Okay, I'm finishing the PhDs, and then I would like to, or not. Yeah, how did that came that you're a professor now yourself?
Yeah, so maybe just in terms of like mentorship, right? So right now, when I'm mentoring students, I mentor students at all levels. So I work with students who are like all the way from like middle school. So we have a student in the lab. She's in in middle school right now, right? And so there's like folks from middle school, high school, undergrads, masters, PhD students, other professors who are getting started as well, right? So I think I work and mentor folks at different ranges. And then just personally in my journey, right? Like after I finished my, just going back to your actual question, after I finished um, my PhD, I had to make a decision of what to do next. Like, should I go, should I start a company? Should I join another big company? Should I go to academia? And at that point, for the situation of the world around at that point, and for what my interests were at that point, academia was the most exciting thing. And so it was a no-brainer at that time, at least for me to try to go into academia.
And was it easy to make it happen?
Um, it's an interesting question. So I don't think it was easy to make it happen, right? But like it was hard, but I definitely think it was easier for me because of the type of resources I had, right? Like I went to, a pretty good grad school. My advisor was really good, really helpful, really helped me go through the process, right? So yeah, it was hard, but I also want to acknowledge that I definitely had a easier journey just because of being fortunate to be in the right lab, fortunate to have the right type of advisor. Yeah.
Hmm. Good to hear. I mean, a lot of students that they struggle which course to take, which direction to go. Some universities and some countries are more straightforward, so there's not too much opportunities to choose and to get
Hmm.
lost. But on the other side, there's as especially the field of robotics is so vast, right?
Hmm.
You should I go into this direction? Should I go into this direction? Was there something that was hard for you to make a decision, or was that throughout the journey gradually digging deeper into the things that you're working already, and then like the path was already there because you were going? How was that for you?
Yeah, this is a good question. So I think the biggest decision I had to make was whether to remain in more engineering, like do more building of robots, like the hardware type of research, versus do I want to go more into machine learning, data-driven AI, that type of stuff. I think
Mm.
that was the actual big decision point because I had offers from several labs, and that was like the thing where okay, I could very well like choose to go into a grad school program where like I'm building robots, just going into the nitty-gritty of the hardware versus like building the sort of brains and the AI portion of the robot. So I think that was actually the big decision point for me where I had opportunities on both sides and I had to think about okay, which one is the best decision to make. I think after that portion, I think every other um sort of decision I had to make was, I would say, I mean, not easy, but I was able to figure out based on the opportunities, based on the options I have very quickly what I should do because I had more information at that point. I think decisions you make farther on where you have lots and lots of options are always hard, right? Like when you go into college, should you try to become a math major? Should you try to become a philosophy major? You have more options over there. But like later on, once you have, gone into sciences, it's like hard for me to now go into, I don't know, becoming a surgeon or becoming a lawyer,
Mm.
right? So I think in that sense, um, that first decision of trying to go into more building robot brain instead of going into building hardware, um, I think that was the main hard part. Yeah.
So, would you then say that just taking a few steps will already help you? Because by taking a few steps, you're eliminating first a few options, right? But you're
Mm.
also exploring more of what kind of opportunities are there, right? They are. And do you, yeah, so do you think that taking some action always helps making the decision?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, um, I think you're bringing up a very important point, and I can see clearly, from maybe all your past podcasts, you have like seen a similar sort of a trend over here, maybe where um, I think many times folks when they have lots of options, they get like a paralysis, like a decision, like they have so many decisions, they do not know which one to take, and they just, don't do anything, right? And I think, I've definitely had this in my career as well. And I think oftentimes just like choosing something, just based on, maybe even just vibes, the vibes of something looks good, let's just do it and let's just keep doing it. I think the process of just doing something helps you learn. And when you learn something, you get more information, you get more sort of bits in your mind are turned on and off the right way. And that helps you go back and, make a decision of, okay, do you want to revisit something else? Right. And that's for sure happened with me. Now, if you come to my lab right now, our lab does a lot of hardware now, right? So even though for a long time of my robotics research, I did not do much hardware. Now we are doing a lot of hardware, right? And so um, I think just choosing a path and just going down that path and just learning and doing your best on that path helps you learn so much, not just about that path, but just about the world in general. It helps you go back and make a better decision. Yeah.
There's a lot of things happening in those labs at the moment. I mean, for me, it's I don't know too much about this world. So for me, it's always
Mhm.
interesting to hear. And now that I'm in the Zurich area, Zurich and the ETH, there's a few labs over there. I've been in contact with a few people, and the ins and outs, but also the politics that is coming out of that. And
Mhm.
ETH is pushing very hard now on spin-offs, and
Yeah.
maybe we can go now into this part where we're talking about the things that some people do right and some people do wrong, and what's your take on that, and what is your consequence of that?
Yeah, yeah. I guess there's a lot to unpack over here, right? Because there's lots of ways in which you can do things wrong, and lots of ways you can do things right as well. Yeah, and I think it's just amazing to see how many more opportunities we have in robotics, right? If you compare like 10 years ago versus now, like it's just exploded, right? There's opportunities in academia, there's opportunities in industry, like there's like companies wanting to do robotics, there's investors, willing to invest, and there's appetite to sort of invest in robotics companies. So I think this is like one of those golden ages in robotics. Like I do not know how long it's going to last. I do not know how frequent it's going to be, but right now for sure we are in a golden age, right? Um, yeah, so where should we start? What should we start with? There's academia, there's other companies, there's startups. Yeah.
I mean, I always like to stay very close to my guests, right? So I don't want
Hmm.
to go too far away from other things that are out there. This
Hmm.
is a podcast that is more about the people, not the technology, but it is
Got it.
also about deep tech, right? So technology is a
Hmm.
huge part of the people that I'm interviewing. And so you
Yeah.
said that we went through the university phase, building the lab, right? Working on different kind of technologies. And you mentioned earlier, and everyone who is following the LinkedIn overview knows that something is happening at the moment. Maybe we can dive, or we can walk the way that is based and coming out of academia, and then
Hmm.
it seems like going into the industry. And you can tell me as much or as less as you like, and I will ask a few questions.
Yeah, yeah. So, so maybe I can talk a little bit about robotics, academia in general, and sort of put in my sort of a perspective over there and what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing next.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, if you just look at robotics, right? Like robotics has been a very, a field which has been around for a very long time. And then if you look at the sort of subspace of robot learning or this type of, mixture of robots with these cutting edge deep learning, machine learning ideas, that area is maybe like 10-ish years old, right? Um, and so what we are seeing is, a lot of this early work started 10 years ago. It started, developing in a nice way, lots of new ideas, lots of excitement, new conferences. There's this new I guess now it's not new, but conference on robot learning or uh, GRAIL, right? It wasn't there 10 years ago. So like there's a lot of thrust and energy in trying to get robot learning to work. And what we're seeing now is that many of these ideas do work, right? They're working to some extent. And so, from an academic perspective, it's like, okay, we are trying to discover something new. We're trying to breathe life into new ideas. We see signs of life. We see the sort of sparks of, intelligence from a robotic standpoint starting, right? And so the question is, what's the next step, right? So here I think is there's a big question of what type of work can you do in academia versus what type of work can you do in industry, right? So I think academia is great for getting those first sparks, for figuring out what works, what is not working. But then if you want to really scale it up, if I really want to take some of these ideas and now let's say like solve skilled labor or get a home robot that does every chore in my house, right? At some point, the resources you have at academia is just completely insufficient to actually go about trying to solve this, right? So what you're seeing right now is that a lot of the academics who are like, hey, we have algorithms that work really well. For the resources we have in our lab, we have shown how well it works. But like we want to do more. We want to scale this up. We want to bring this out in the real world. For that, it's almost like necessary to build a company, right? You could partner with another large company and do it, and that is definitely an option. I think it's a good option if you find the right match over there. But predominantly, what we're seeing right now is that going and starting a company just because of the venture appetite and the excitement in the field seems to be the big way to scale things up. Okay. And that's basically what I've been doing, right? So a lot of my work, we are seeing that it works. It actually works in the lab. Um, we actually just from our academic lab, we collaborate quite a bit with industry folks. So all the big tech companies like Meta, LG, like Samsung, Hyundai. If you just like make a list of all the big tech companies interested in robotics, we work very closely with them. And so we see that many of the things that we do actually works for them. They are like using this in either in their research products or in the actual products as well. And so at that point, it just becomes clear to us that, okay, if this is actually working, if people are finding value from this, we should scale it up ourselves because we are the ones with the most insight into
Mm.
these problems. So we should be the ones who actually, scale this up, build because there's still research involved. When you scale things up, you cannot just like, take a knob and tune from, I don't know, 0.1 to like 100 and it just like works. Like you have to, in that process, you have to come up with new ideas to scale things up itself, right? And so I think that was a just like seeing that was a decision point to me that okay, I should go about and do this. I should go about and start a company to scale a lot of the ideas that have been working in the sort of robot learning space.
But not necessarily becoming an entrepreneur, right? So it seems like the spark was or is still rooted in we're doing this kind of research and we would like to do this research on a different kind of level with different kind of resources, with different kind of access to resources. So
Hmm.
versus which is a totally different approach, which is still also valid, but um,
Hmm.
the can I make money? Can I build a
Yeah.
company? Can
Hmm.
I, but also something that is in between, can I solve a problem, right? Do I see a
Hmm.
problem? Then there's no solution out there, right? Because there's a
Yeah.
difference between I'm interested in the technology, I would like to discover this technology further, versus I do see a problem because I encounter the problem myself, or I don't see a
Hmm.
fitting solution to the problem that I do see in the industry, or that I see a demand, a pull, right? And why not me solving that versus others? I mean, there's different kind of.
Yeah.
S- how do you think about that?
Yeah. So great question. I think there's different routes in which people think about it.
What's
You're
yours?
you're totally right. Yeah, yeah. So the way I'm thinking of it is that I actually want this technology to actually be in the real world. I want I want to see robots making a difference in the real world as soon as possible, right? So I think a large fraction of humanity is spending way too much time doing things they do not want to do, doing physical work they don't want to do, stuff that they don't want to do. And I actually really believe that when our technology is mature, to a certain degree, it will actually free people up. It will free people up to doing things that they really internally want to do rather than, doing a 9 to 5 job or sometimes even more, doing the same thing over and over again, taking on risk, doing, working in hazardous work environments, right? So I think my goal, just from a very long viewpoint is just to solve this, right? Just like um, free, free, free people up to doing what they want to do. Um, Actually, I would say that a lot of my research has been inspired by this, where I've always wanted to do this, but we didn't have any mechanism to attack it. So I think my reason for doing a lot of the research has also been to sort of attack this problem, right? And now, of course, to do that, you have to be curious. You have to, have a unique insight on solving some of the key challenges there. But ultimately, once you solve this, the attack point has always been that. And so you'll see it even in my academic research. A lot of my academic research has been on home robots, right? And home robots has always been this goal where, okay, like we want to create intelligence, but sort of uh, deliver this intelligence through a home robot because there's so much work that people do at homes that they have to keep doing it over and over again. And instead of doing that, if there was a robot that could just clean up your kids' toys, you now have freed up like an hour every day to like, paint or watch a movie or do something else, right? So I think even our research, even when I was never connected to a company, was always with that view. Yeah.
Without opening up the box of Pandora, one could argue there's a lot of things that we can now do that will not free up our time, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
dangerous things to do or boring things to do. But there's some things that people do, even though they are boring
Mm-hmm.
and repetitive, but it's still making a living, right? So,
Yeah.
and here not supporting but actually replacing, right? So this is a topic
Hmm.
that, like I said, we will not go too deep into this, but it's I love to see and this is the reason why I like to work with startup founders, with founders in general,
Hmm.
that are driven by this, right? That we haven't figured
Hmm.
out the consequences of that yet, but
Hmm.
that the idea is I would like to do something good. I would like to do, and this is the reason why I always, when people come up with conspiracy theories, is like, I don't know, the majority of people that I meet,
Hmm.
uh, they have a positive goal. They have something
Hmm.
that is not benefiting. I would like to be able to buy myself a 300-meter yacht, right? It's
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
it's more like, there's other things to it, and so I really like to hear this, right? To reinforce the idea that that there's so many young founders or founders in general that would like to contribute positively to the world we are living in, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And um, I think we're in a space where, I mean, I should say that I'm also lucky to be in a place where I do not have to think too much about, day-to-day living. It's
Mm,
not, if you look at the world population, a large fraction of world population has to worry about how they get food on their table every day, right? So I want to firstly acknowledge that. Um, so I think that bit is important just to have personal security to some sense. But I think apart from the base needs on that front, right? Um, I feel like having a mission in life is really important. And I
yes.
think the question for everyone at some point is like, okay, what next? What should you do that will truly make you happy, right? What should you do that will truly give you joy, right? And this is something that I don't know, I think most people grapple with when they when they are like, I don't know, shoved out of their home, when they have to go to like undergrad or like, go to grad school and, leave
Mm,
the nest in some sense.
yeah.
I think like everyone has to make a choice over here. For some people, it's like, oh yeah, I want to have a yacht, and some people are like, I want to see other people happy. I want to, m make the world a better place to live in, right? So I think that's a decision for individuals to make themselves, right? And I think so. Just from the combination of, okay, we want to make the place a better place to be in, and the fact that some of the technological advances are actually matching up. It's not like it's not like a thought or a goal in ether. It's a goal which is grounded in reality, where we see technology improving, and so you can actually direct and apply this technology to solving these problems, right? Um, and so you also mentioned this question about in a way, the people aspect of things, right? Whenever a new technology is brought about, it does have a huge impact on people. And we are seeing this even right now, right? If you think about Gen AI, there's like a huge impact of on the Gen AI, and let's say like on the digital art creators, for instance, a lot of sort of insecurity over there about, will they have a job at some point of time and so on.
Mm.
Um, and I think I can totally see how workers may also feel that way. But at the same time, if you just look at the raw numbers, the raw statistics, there is like labor shortage. There's labor shortage in North America, in Europe, in most parts of Southeast Asia, right? Like there are several reasons for it. There's the whole like demographic trends, which is definitely a big contributing factor to this.
Yes.
But also other things, right? Like if you have a kid, like how many of our listeners will like ask their kid to be like, hey, when you grow up, you should be a plumber, right? Oh, when you grow up, you should like learn how to like roof the buildings, or like, oh, when you grow up, you should like go into construction, right? Like it just does not happen. So it's also like a societal trend where um,
Which can happen though. Because at the
which can
moment,
happen.
yeah, because at the moment,
Yeah.
as we see this huge labor shortage, and robots are not there
Yeah.
yet, right? So
Hmm.
actually, people going into university, they could actually get some insights in, you know how much a plumber makes, or someone who's building
Hmm.
roofs at the moment. I
Hmm.
mean, try to get one of those people, right? They can call
Yeah.
up any number they like because the shortage is there, right? Um,
Yeah.
how does that fit with, as you said, you've been doing this kind of research for quite a while now. This comes out
Hmm.
of your lab, and now making the decision, getting out of the lab. Well, How how
Hmm.
how is this coming together?
Yeah. So, um, yeah, a few things over here to unpack, right? So just on the societal stuff, I think societal trends are hard to reverse, right? Like once something is like it's almost like culture. Like it's
Yes, it
hard
is
to change
culture.
culture, right? Yeah, and it's hard to change it. Sometimes there can be big events that like change the culture, but like plumbers have been making a lot of money for a long time now. But like it takes time for this understanding to go through and for people to actually like understand and sort of embrace it, right? Like people are not rational actors. People are not like, okay, here is how much they're going to make. Here is how much like the risk is if you do this. Here's how much I have to, how many hours I have to work. Like people don't look at it in a fully rational way. They're like a lot of it is honestly very vibes based. A lot of
True.
cultural aspects are actually very vibes based, right? Okay, so with that being said, on the technology side, I do not think any of our robots right now can be a plumber. I don't think any of our robots right now can do everything that let's say a roofer does, or can do everything that let's say a construction worker does,
Hmm.
right? But do they need to? Do they need to have value, right? So I think one of our main insights is that we're still at the inflection point for the robotic intelligence. There's still a long way for robotic intelligence to develop until it reaches the point where it can do everything that an, that a skilled worker does, right? I think this is good for several reasons. So, A, it means that we are still very far away from the point where a skilled worker can be completely replaced by a robot. I think we are
True.
very, very far away from that. But we're definitely at a point where a skilled worker can sort of expand their level of productivity by having better tools, right? So I think the analogy is more like imagine a worker trying to construct something with their bare hands versus construct something with a hammer, with like a drill, with like tools, right? Like there's a big difference in the productivity over there. And now
Yes.
imagine the next level of productivity where the person who's doing this type of work is doing it along with a robot. He's doing it with like a robot, like a buddy of sorts, where things
Mm.
which are maybe a little bit more risky, a little bit more,
Mm.
hard to do, they will like offload it onto the robot, but still like work very closely with the robot as a tool, right?
Yeah.
So I think that mentality of like not thinking about replacement, because honestly, it's not there. There is like we don't have the robotics technology for replacement for these types of jobs. What we want to do is to use the robotic technology to increase the level of productivity, right? Increase the amount of things that this one person can do, right? I think the ramifications of this itself is going to be immense, right? So, for example, in the US, there's a lot of talk about, okay, we have to upskill our workforce. How do you upskill your workforce, right? Like, you can say it, but like, how do you actually do it? And I think this is going to be a key part of it. Just giving them better technology, better tools, better robots. That's what's going to upskill people to do things that maybe people 20 years ago were not able to do.
I have a short question. Do you mind me for 1 second?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see if I'm gonna keep this one because it makes I think the podcast more interesting. I have a little one, she's 2, and
Oh, that's
yeah. So one of the reasons why I have the podcast is to try to understand what kind of upbringing is necessary to build this kind of people, right? And because you need to
mm,
be very resilient,
mm,
right? You do need to be curious.
hmm
You do need to be not risk adverse if you're actually seeking risk, because now
Mm-hmm.
you're stepping out of academia and going into the industry. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm having this podcast also to teach me, so I know how to teach. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so thanks for waiting. Um, but a lot of things that you were speaking here is giving us context, right? Giving us
Mm-hmm.
context and a bit more of understanding of the person. But
Mm-hmm.
as we're coming towards the end of the podcast, maybe you can reveal a little bit
Mm-hmm.
on what is actually happening behind the scenes. And maybe if you don't want to share too much, which is fine, maybe you can give
Mm-hmm.
us an idea about what's coming. What if we're gonna have this podcast in next year, so in 1 year. So this will
Yeah.
be season 3.
Mm-hmm.
What would I be looking forward to?
Yeah, so great, great question. And yeah, I think just starting from some of the things you said earlier, right? I think there's a lot of work to be done when we think about teaching the next generation on what they have to do next. But going into what we are building, so I guess like some folks already know, I've started a new company and we have been around for a few months, so we are fairly young. We are growing very quickly. Um, a lot of details are still, in embargo mode right now.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
a lot of the core details I won't share right now. But in your next season, I can hopefully give you a lot more detail. But I think maybe I can give you some high level nuggets of the lines in which we are thinking at, and maybe that's something that your listeners may appreciate. So I think our line of thinking is there has to be the right blend of research and application when you
Hmm.
build a robotics company now, right? You do not want to do something where you are not doing research, you're just looking at the research right now and building a product for what you're doing right now. Because the research right now is not ready to take on the full level of skilled work, right?
Mm.
And so I think if your ambitions are to go for that, if your ambitions are to go for full skilled work, you have to do research, right? But at the same time, you cannot be doing only research, because if you're doing only research, you become like an academic lab, right?
Mm.
And so, like, there are very few folks who have figured out how to do only research without delivering real world value. And honestly, I think you have to ground yourself, like, because research is very open-ended. How do you do this type of research while being focused on the actual problems, while being focused on the actual ways in which it can create value? So that's what our company is sort of philosophically very aligned with, which is this right mixture of like going into real hard problems, right? Which may not be solvable right now, but will be solvable in a year, a few years from now. Building that tech around that, where we see the sparks working right now, but how do you take it to a level where this research now works for this type of problem, right? So that's the sort of like philosophy and ethos of how we do research, how we build our product. And this is also why I cannot give a lot of our details, because it's a lot of like actual cutting edge new stuff that we have not released yet.
It is nice that you give a glimpse that is very specific, but in a very general way. So I think you would make a good politician to say a lot of things without saying exactly what you're talking about, which I appreciate, because actually gives me the opportunity to have you on a second on the next season.
Mhm.
And I'm very happy that you as I said, there's other podcasts out there that are very technical and that I appreciate, and but this is not what I'm about. I'm about the person, and I think we had a great opportunity to get a good view behind the person. And as there's almost weekly updates on new startups, new spin-offs,
Mhm.
new research that or research breakthroughs that are happening. I think it is the golden age, right?
Hmm.
There is a delta between what people are promising and what is actually there. And I like that you said it's not here today. And even though some
Hmm.
founders would like to tell their VCs and their customer it's here, it's
Hmm.
not. So, and you are on the forefront, seem to have a good idea what's out there, right? And
Hmm.
I'm very thankful that you said yes. I was hunting you down for quite a bit, and we finally find some time, and I really appreciate it. But as I'm someone who is yeah, very much in the deployment, very much in the application world, and the manufacturing especially, this is where I feel home and this is where I feel comfortable. And
Hmm.
it would be funny to see, and if we can have a second episode when we enter this world. And
Yeah.
I'm saying looking forward to that one. And thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you, Ilya. This was great. Yeah.
But
Happy to be on again.
yeah, I was just about to say, think of me when it comes the time to announce some things. A few times now, I had founders in their launch week on the podcast, so maybe we can match that. I say I take tips here, and looking forward to see you again. Thank you for your time.
Sounds good.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
Ilya.